All right, welcome everyone and happy December. Sounds like some of us are feeling that cold weather and some of us are enjoying some nice rain. My name is Liana and I'm the community manager on our Educate team here at Ceros. Joined with me, I have Corey, our director of content, Sophie, our partnerships manager, and we have a very special guest today, Jesse from Transifex. We're so excited to have you guys here for our webinar. And we will be answering all questions at the end. So feel free to utilize the chat window, send your questions there, and we will get to those as we're wrapping up. But with that being said, I will kick it over to Corey to get started.
Thanks, Liana. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here today on what I like to call the circle back next year season of the year. But I'm Corey. I'm the director of content on the marketing team at Ceros, and I'm here to just kind of set the stage a little bit, get you guys excited to be here. Very little bit about me. I am a creative writer at heart, just moonlighting as a B2B content marketer, as I think a lot of us B2B content marketers are. But I've been in the field for many years. My previous roles were at places like Oracle and LexisNexis on really large global teams. So I became a bit familiar with, the practice of localization and the importance of it and really some of the challenges around it. But before handing it over to Jesse and Sophie, who are really going to get into the meat of things today, I wanted to start by asking you all a question. And this is mainly rhetorical, but you can feel free to post anything in the chat if you want. But I want to know, when was the last time a piece of marketing or sales collateral like really grabbed your attention? Like you still remember it. We live in a world, it's overflowing with content, and our audiences are all just a swipe away from, our competitors, a shiny TikTok video, the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. No, I don't watch that. How do you stand out? How do you get people to stay? And more importantly, how do you get them to remember? And at Ceros, we believe it's all about creating immersive, interactive experiences. And if you're here today, though, the chances are high you probably have another challenge, and that's standing out. And that's reaching audiences in a variety of regions and countries that have, and these people have very different feelings on what speaks to them. And so tailoring your message to those specific markets, it's no simple task. And it's more than sending a Word document to a translator. But it is the step that is extremely powerful. People, they love a personal touch, and people, they want to be catered to. And so we believe that when you combine these immersive, interactive experiences with thoughtful localization, you're not just delivering a message, you're building trust, you're fostering connection, and you're ultimately growing your brand globally. And so that is why we wanted to share about the power of the Transifex integration with Ceros today. Our teams, they've created a seamless way to localize your interactive content so it feels personal, no matter where in the world it's viewed. So how does all this work? I'm going to hand things over to Jesse, and he's going to talk about what makes Transifex a localization leader. He's going to talk about their platform. And then Sophie is going to take us through the integration with Ceros. Sound good? All right, cool. Jesse, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Corey. Well, nice to see everyone, and thanks so much for coming out. I'm Jesse Schreiber, and I'm really excited to join you all today to talk about the power of localization. Today, we'll walk through what localization really means, why it's essential for global growth, and how tools like Transifex and Ceros can enable you to create engaging, localized experiences at scale. So let's dive in. Cool. So our goal today is to show you how localization can amplify the impact of your content across global markets. We'll start by exploring what localization is and why it's essential. But first, I want to start with a really common misconception. And that is, while translation is a crucial part of localization, localization itself is more than blindly translating content from one language to another. When we think about global audiences, the goal isn't to just translate words. It's to make content resonate. Localization is really about adapting your content to feel natural and relevant in every market you serve. Localization, or L10N, as we call it often, is a combination of translation, cultural adaptation, legal compliance, and also technical adjustment. So on the next slide, let's look at some of these key elements. So the first thing that we have is translation, where converting text is really just the beginning of the localization process, but translation alone isn't enough. Then we have on the next thing, we have cultural adaptation. This is going to ensure your imagery, tone, and even humor align with local preferences. Moving right along, legal compliance certainly plays a huge part. So you can think about things like GDPR or product labeling requirements. Localization is always going to ensure that you're compliant. And lastly, for more technical teams, products or services, and even some standard terms you would often forget in translation, we also have technical adjustments. So these could be things like formatting dates, currencies, and even something as simple as ensuring text fits within your specific design layouts. So on the next slide here, we're going to talk about getting it right. And really, here's the thing. Simply translating content word for word doesn't guarantee that your audience will understand or even appreciate your message. Localization is going to go much deeper, touching on elements you might not even think of at first glance. So what could go wrong? We'll break it down into 5 potential things. The first one is going to be imagery units and symbols. Something as simple as a thumbs up emoji could mean approval in one culture, but be offensive in another. Likewise, failing to adapt measurements, like using Fahrenheit instead of Celsius, can confuse your audience and make your message feel out of touch. Even colors can carry unintended meanings, such as white symbolizing purity in one culture and mourning in another. The second is going to be legal and regulatory requirements. Ignoring legal nuances can and oftentimes will land you in hot water. For example, an e-commerce website offering free shipping may inadvertently mislead customers in regions where shipping fees apply due to regulatory differences. Similarly, failing to meet GDPR standards for European audiences can lead to hefty fines and also erode trust. Third would be product names and descriptions. So without localization, product names and descriptions can take on unintended meanings. There's a famous example that happened with Mitsubishi where they had a product line called Pajero, which actually had to be renamed in Spanish-speaking countries because it was slang for something inappropriate. Product descriptions that don't align with local cultural preferences may also fail to resonate with the intended audience. Fourth would be industry-specific terminology and jargon. So oftentimes industry terms don't always translate well. Think about something from like the technical or medical jargon, which is improperly localized. These could lead to misunderstandings that actually impact credibility or in some cases, even safety. And the fifth thing from here is that humor is really deeply tied to culture. And what's funny in one market could really fall flat or even offend in another. For instance, wordplay or idiomatic expressions often lose their impact when translated literally. Brands need to localize jokes to ensure they resonate appropriately, or they risk alienating their audience. When these elements are overlooked, brands risk more than confusion. They risk damaging relationships with their audience. And that's why localization is so important to get right. It's going to ensure your message connects meaningfully, resonates emotionally, and builds trust, no matter where in the world your audience is. So on the next slide, we'll talk about why localization isn't just a nice to have, but it's actually a critical driver of global success. So here are 3 key reasons why brands should strongly consider prioritizing it. The first one is going to be that 74% of businesses report that language barriers are a significant challenge when entering new markets. Without localized content, you risk missing opportunities to connect with these audiences. Moving along, the second thing is going to be customer preferences. And 65% of customers prefer content in their own language, and 40% won't even make a purchase if product information isn't available in their native language. Localization shows your customers that you're speaking directly to them. And lastly, we have positive revenue impact. And here I think the numbers really speak for themselves. There's over 5.3 billion internet users globally, but only 1.5 billion are English speakers. Localization is really a key to unlocking this massive untapped potential. So don't just take it from me, folks. Let the numbers here really do the talking. Localization goes beyond translations. It's about creating authentic, culturally relevant experiences that drive engagement, loyalty, and revenue. So make sure that your organization treats localization as a priority and dedicates the resources, time, investments to do it right. Not only will it make your life easier, but it'll make your business more profitable. So before we go any further, let's take a moment to say a few things about Transifex. I do realize it's a little late for an introduction, but I think it might be helpful for those of you who are new to us. So first here, Transifex is an AI-driven company with localization at its core. Over the past year, we've embraced an AI-first approach, integrating cutting-edge technologies to elevate our platform. But our focus isn't just on adopting AI. It's about ensuring it delivers real impact for your global strategy. Which leads me to my second point, and what truly differentiates us is how we go beyond basic AI models. At Transifex, we tailor translations to reflect your brand's unique voice and context. And lastly, here we can think of Transifex as your centralized localization hub. Our award-winning TMS, or also known as a translation management system, provides all the tools you need to streamline and scale your workflows. From translation memory and terminology management to seamless integrations with platforms like Ceros, it's everything you need in one place to manage and grow your global reach. So with that out of the way, let's talk about really what is a TMS and why it's such a powerful tool for localization. So a TMS is essentially the backbone of any effective localization strategy because it really helps centralize your workflows, brings departments and experts together to streamline collaboration, and ensures consistency across every language and market you serve. At Transifex, our TMS brings 6 key features to the table that make localization not only manageable, but also scalable. The first one is going to be translation memory. This ensures that every translation you've done in the past is saved and can be reused. This is a huge time saver and guarantees consistency across projects, as our customers have anywhere between 20 to 50% duplicates on average. The next would be terminology management. With this, you can maintain a consistent brand voice by defining terms that should always be translated a certain way or not translated at all. Third is going to be workflow automations. So this is anything from assigning tasks to tracking progress. Automation takes the manual work out of localization. Collaboration tools. So whether it's your marketing team, developers, or external translators, everyone works together seamlessly all under one hood. Fifth would be reporting and analytics. So you can get actionable insights into translation quality, turnaround times, and costs, so you could really help optimize your entire process. And then lastly here would be integrations. So Transifex connects directly with many tools like Ceros, making it easier to manage localization within your existing workflows. This combination of features turns localization from a headache into a competitive advantage. So on this next slide, let's take a moment to address the challenges many businesses face when trying to localize content. Expanding into new markets often feels overwhelming because localization can be complex, time-consuming, and expensive. So here are some common pain points we've heard from customers before switching to Transifex. Manually searching for and reusing translations. So can you imagine wasting time digging through spreadsheets to find what's already been done? Or separate spreadsheets or documents, right? So it's really easy for things to get lost or outdated when everything is fragmented. Moving right along, we hear a lot about manual proofreading and error checking. This is really going to slow down production and increases the chances of mistakes slipping through. And another common problem would be keeping track of deadlines and budgets. Oftentimes, when you're working with multiple languages, there's too much manual oversight, which almost always leads to delays and efficiencies. So with the TMS, businesses can really automate these repetitive, error-prone tasks so they could focus on delivering high-quality content faster and with fewer headaches. This is really at the core why Transifex exists, to serve these needs, and that's why localization is such an important strategy to get right. So now I'm going to pass it over to Sophie to talk a little bit more about how the integration works.
Thank you, Jesse. That was great. Super interesting. And hi, everyone. My name is Sophie. I'm on the Ceros partnerships team, and I'm really excited to be on today's call because over my time at Ceros, both on the partnerships team and on the sales team, I've heard time and time again from countless customers about the need for a stronger translations process, which ultimately led us to pursue and identify our partnership with our awesome team over at Transifex. So I will show you how the integration works today, but before I do, I want to start by discussing what makes this partnership so unique. On the partnerships team, a lot of what we do is craft and refine our better together stories with our partners. But for Ceros and Transifex, it just felt so obvious. This is something that we've talked about a few times today, but what we're doing here is enabling the creation of truly localized premium digital content, which means your end users are not just getting a translated version of your experience, but they're getting content that feels native and authentic and relevant to their region. And ultimately, that boosts satisfaction and engagement with your brand. So before we dive into the demo, let's quickly touch on some of the benefits because they're significant for both creators and the end users. If you're a creator who's ever worked on a global campaign using Ceros, you probably know how time-consuming it can be to duplicate and localize experiences for each and every region. For those of you who haven't been involved in this process, before our partnership with Transifex, the old way of creating multilingual content meant building separate copies for each and every language and then stringing them together with hotspots. This was a process that took a lot of time and significant resources, but now with Ceros and Transifex working together, you can build just one single Ceros experience and apply as many translations as you want directly to it. So key headline here, no more duplicating. I also want to talk about some of the benefits to the end user, because in the past, they had to actually load the experience in English, find the language picker, find the language that they consume content in, and then wait for that page to load. Obviously, this takes several clicks, and it posed a pretty significant barrier to entry. But now with our integration with Transifex, end users are served the most relevant localized experience every time automatically. So with these key benefits in mind, I'm going to walk through a quick demo of how we actually get this working. And I'll start first by showing you what the end product looks like. So you may have seen this example before. This is a popular one, but this was created by one of our customers who allowed us to share it. And we added these localized components to the piece after it was created. So you can see that as I click through this language picker, we're being shown different versions automatically. There's no page reload. I'm not being driven off to a different site. It's all happening within the experience. I will call out before we go any further that this language picker was built by us in the studio. If you don't like how it looks, there's also a default language picker that comes along with Transifex. And actually, there are ways that you can leverage this content without even using a language picker due to some of the capabilities of Transifex that we'll talk about further on in the demo. So let's talk about how that was created. Pretty simple. We're going to build our Ceros content the way that we always would. So we're creating desktop and mobile. The only difference in creating localized content versus non-localized content is there are a few design best practices that we want to keep in mind. So I'm not sure if you can see this, but you may be able to see that we've extended some of the text boxes in this experience to be a little bit longer, just to ensure that no matter what language we're supporting, it's going to fit in that same text box. Because again, this is all happening on just one single Ceros experience. Our next step is to connect Ceros to Transifex through our HTML panel. If you haven't used this before, this is a great tool for creating quizzes, calculators, anything that might require some custom code. You can drop it directly in here. And I know that this probably looks a little bit intimidating to those of us who are not developers, but no worries at all. All you need to do is copy and paste it from our Educate article directly into your experience. So now that we've dropped that in, we can open up our preview link, and you're going to notice something really cool happens when we type in *Transifex. This sidebar opens up right here on the left, and we are able to switch between some of the different languages and start with the translations process. So the very first thing that we want to do when we open the preview link is we want to do something called manage strings. That basically just means decide which text boxes need to be translated and which text boxes don't. There may be times where, for example, like your product name or your company name should not be translated. And so that way, you know that you can just ignore that string by hovering over the text box and clicking ignore. You can also do this in bulk, which is the way that I like to operate. So I'll select all of the text boxes in the experience and I'll click approve. And then I can go through and I can maybe delete some of the custom HTML or custom CSS that you can see here in our ignored section. So this is just content that doesn't actually appear on the page and doesn't actually need to be translated. I'll highlight here that we have 59 approved strings. So that means 59 text boxes that need to be translated. Since I've already connected my Ceros platform with my Transifex platform, when I open up the experience in the Transifex dashboard, I can see that there are 59 strings loading up here automatically. There was no copying and pasting, and there was no sharing of files behind the scenes. These two platforms are now able to speak to each other. I also showed this in the benefits slide, but Transifex is super, super customizable. So whatever your current translation workflow looks like, you should continue to use it. We don't want to disrupt that. We're just going to augment it with a tool that helps makes it easier. A couple of different ways that most of our customers will leverage Transifex to get the actual translations done. The first is the most popular, which is to translate in the Transifex editor. So I'll open this page. I'll select the language that I want to work on. Let's go with Japanese to start. And oftentimes teams will select all of these strings and run them through either machine translation or AI translations to start. I would not recommend going live with machine translation, but it is a good way to start the process to help save your language speakers time when they're going in and reviewing and contextualizing some of these translations. One other thing I want to call out within this dashboard are some of those features that Jesse mentioned before. So translation memory and translation memory fill up. You can see here that when we have the string watch her in action, it's already suggesting with 101% certainty that this is the way you should translate this string based on the way you've translated in the past. You can see another example just below where this one actually says watch him in action instead of watch her in action. And this is nearly a 90% match. So this would signify that we need to take a look at this one more time. While I love everything within the Transifex dashboard and it's super easy to use, some translators will opt to do the translations directly in the Ceros preview link. You saw at the beginning where I was able to switch between languages. This is going to give you all the context that you possibly could need to be able to make these translations. We had an example the other day where there was a CTA button that said return home. And in the dashboard, we looked at it and we translated as go back to your house. But then when we looked at it in the experience and context, we realized that it actually meant return to the home page. So we went in and we changed that translation just directly in the preview link. So I would say this is, again, probably the most popular way to get translations done. But let's say you don't have in-house speakers who know the language and can help you with reviewing. Let's say that you use a third-party agency or another LSP to get your translations done. It's really easy to use Transifex as a connector to continue making your Ceros experiences truly multilingual. And you're able to just download your file for translation and then upload the translated file when you're done. So this is another use case, slightly less popular, but is available to you if that's the way that you work. And then finally, let's say you don't have any in-house native speakers and you don't use an agency, you can order translations directly from Transifex, which is something I've done a couple of times and it's been super helpful, very reasonably priced on just a cost per word. So at this stage, we'll assume that we've translated the content in one of the three ways that I walked through. Our next step is to go back into the preview link, to switch between the languages, and just make sure that everything throughout the experience looks as expected. Occasionally, you will see something occur in the studio where maybe a text box was a little bit too tight, like perhaps we forgot to change that out. Let's make it really tight in English. And then when we look at it in Spanish, let's actually go to a different language here. We can see that Meet Evan has been pushed onto the second line. So this signifies to us that we need to come back into the studio, extend that text box, and we'll see it update in real time. So now that the experience looks good to me in all the languages, and I feel comfortable shipping it out, my next step is to publish. So you can publish it directly from this Transifex sidebar by clicking publish. You can select the languages that you want to go live with. So maybe let's say you only want to launch French first, or you know that there are going to be changes to Spanish coming up, so you'll launch 2 and not the 3. You have total control over distribution of how, when, and where this content is going live. So we'll publish the experience, and then we'll be left with this final product that I showed you earlier. If we want to distribute it, there are a couple of different ways to do so. So at the beginning, I mentioned that the end user is always going to receive the version that is most relevant to their preferred language. This happens because Transifex automatically detects the user's preferred browser settings and will serve up the appropriate experience based on that. However, there are going to be times where you'd like to maybe embed a Japanese page into your Japanese regional site. You're able to hard push that language simply using the language identifier, which in this case is JA. So you'd append $language equals JA to either the end of the URL or to the end of the embed code. And again, that's going to ensure that every single time we look at this URL or this embed code, we're seeing it in Japanese. So that is the high-level overview. If you're ever interested in getting a more in-depth demo and having it tailored more to your specific needs and your specific company's experience, please reach out to your CSM and we can schedule some time to do so. And at this point, I will hand it back over to Jesse to talk about AI and localization.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sophie. So we'll shift gears a little bit here and talk about the role of AI in localization, and more specifically, how Transifex is leveraging AI to change the game today. So at Transifex, we've designed AI-powered workflows to streamline the entire localization process. This is everything from automating repetitive tasks to providing translation suggestions. AI helps reduce your time to market while maintaining high-quality translations. But we don't just stop at generic AI models. Transifex goes beyond by adapting translations to your specific context and brand voice. Whether it's maintaining the right tone or ensuring technical accuracy, our AI tools produce translations that always feel natural and authentic. AI also makes scalability effortless. Whether you're localizing for 5 markets or 50, Transifex is going to ensure your content is consistent, on brand, and delivered efficiently. This is especially crucial for brands working with dynamic content on platforms like Ceros, as Sophie just demonstrated. So in short, Transifex AI isn't just about speed, but it's also about helping you create connections that feel human no matter the market. Cool. And on the next slide, let's talk about quality, because even the fastest translation workflows need to deliver on accuracy and impact. And this is where Transifex's confidence scoring, known as TQI or Transifex Quality Index, comes in. So the way that this works is that TQI provides real-time analytics on the quality of your translations. It's going to go beyond traditional proofreading by giving you actionable insights, whether that is flagging inconsistencies, identifying style mismatches, or evaluating linguistic accuracy. One of the standout features of TQI is its customizable scoring. You can set quality benchmarks that align with your brand's specific needs, whether you're focusing on technical precision or creative flow or anything else. Next would be continuous improvement, right? And the real power of TQI is in its ability to help teams improve over time. By identifying patterns and providing feedback loops, it ensures every translation is better than the last. And because TQI is fully integrated into the Transifex platform, it works seamlessly with your existing workflows. This means you can monitor quality without slowing down production, which is a must for high volume projects on platforms like Ceros. So, in a nutshell, TQI empowers you to deliver translations that aren't just fast and scalable, but also consistently on brand and impactful. Cool. And I think that was everything from our side, so we can open it up to some Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, Jesse and Sophie, for walking us through all of the importance and all those great tips and tricks about translating content and that live demo, Sophie. That was super helpful to see it in action, how you can get it set up in Ceros. It looks like we do have a couple great questions here in the Q&A, and if anyone has any, definitely send them in the chat now. But the first question here is, how do I even get started using Transifex in Ceros?
Great question, and I can take that. I think the first step would be reaching out to your customer success manager or your AE and just let them know that translations and localization is something you're interested in. From there, we'll set up a tailored demo to go through, like I said, your company's specific process and make some recommendations for you.
Awesome. And then following up on that question, how long does it take to actually get the Transifex integration set up and input it into your content?
Maybe Jesse and I can tag team this question.
Sure.
To get actually set up with Transifex, it takes maybe 24 hours or so to go through the setup process of getting your account activated. Pretty simple to do. We'll also start with an hour-long training to make sure that everybody on your team is comfortable with the process and knows where their role fits in this new process with Transifex. And then Jesse, I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about in terms of like onboarding and getting set up with Transifex.
I think that the demo you just gave, Sophie, is a pretty full end-to-end demo, and that was done in probably about 3 minutes. It's very quick and easy to use the Transifex and Ceros experience, and we do have customers who are going live day of or within a week at max.
Awesome. I love that. So if you have any content you're working on that you'd like to have translated, yeah, it only takes a day or so. That's awesome. Another question here is, how do I know if my language is supported?
So I could take that. Transifex supports about 500 languages, so hopefully there's a good chance that we do support those languages. That being said, if there's any obscure languages, we could always discuss adding those languages, and that could take us somewhere between like 72 hours to a week, but should be able to get you up and running pretty quick.
Awesome. And then our last question, it looks like here is, what is the difference between the in-studio AI and the translation tool and the Transifex integration?
This is another great question, and I think it kind of goes back to the description of localization versus translation. So in the studio, you do have access to a Google Translate machine translation option that supports not near 500 languages, but a few different languages that you can leverage. This option is also going to require you to create duplicates for each language. So you're going to need a Spanish version, a French version, a Japanese version, but you can leverage that machine translation. I think Transifex comes in when we're ready to kind of level up and start with the localization rather than the just standard translations. And I think it's definitely required for anything that's going to be customer facing or sitting on your website, for example.
And we just got actually one more really great question here. It said, can you also set images to be different based on the audience?
Yeah.
Based demo, the images of the people made sense from a Western perspective, but I don't know if it will reflect a Japanese audience.
This is a great question, and hopefully you can see my screen again, and I'm just going to jump down further into our Educate article. There is a section that calls out creating language-specific images. It says images, but this can be any component. Like, for example, we have CTA buttons that drive out to regional sites or videos or whatever it might be. This is a huge part of localization, and absolutely you can create those language-specific components throughout your experience.
Awesome. Yeah, super cool. So not only just the text itself, but a lot of aspects of the experience, which is awesome.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. The recording will be available on our Educate site, along with more information, as you saw Sophie just shared, about the Transifex integration. And there's all kinds of great helpful materials over there for creating unforgettable experiences. So definitely be sure to visit educate@ceros.com. And if you need any additional assistance or have any more questions on the integration, definitely reach out to your customer success manager or account exec, and they will be happy to help. And I think we're done. So yeah, everybody have happy holiday season and looking forward to creating more great experiences in 2025.